I was always the backup plan for my family. Now they're furious I moved on without them. Growing up, I was never the priority, only the contingency plan, the backup, the afterthought. My family had always treated me like an emergency fire extinguisher, tucked away in the corner of their lives, only noticed when disaster struck. If my brother needed money after blowing his paycheck on stupid purchases, I got the call. If my cousin got too drunk at a party and needed a ride, I was the one they dialed. If my parents' carefully curated world started to show cracks, I was expected to glue the pieces back together, no matter how much it cost me, financially, emotionally, or mentally. I never questioned it. Not really. It was just the way things were. I was the reliable one, the dependable one, the one who was always there, no matter how much it hurt. And they took full advantage of that. It started small at first. "Hey, can you pick up your brother from school? I'm busy. Do you mind watching your nieces for a couple of hours? We'll be right back. Can you lend me a couple $100? I promise I'll pay you back." But it never stopped at small favors. The couple of hours turned into full weekends. The couple hundred turned into thousands that I never saw again. And no matter how many times they took from me, I kept giving. Because deep down, I thought maybe, just maybe, if I proved myself enough, if I was good enough, if I was useful enough, they'd finally see me. They'd finally love me the way I wanted them to. But love wasn't the currency they traded in. Usefulness was. And I was nothing more than a resource to be exploited. The moment I realized the truth, the moment it really sank in, was the night of my mother's birthday dinner. It had been planned for weeks. My brother and his wife were hosting, and everyone was supposed to be there. I'd asked, just once, if maybe this time someone else could pick up our mom's cake, since I had work late. My sister-in-law had promised she would. She didn't. Instead, I got a frantic call an hour before the dinner. "Can you grab the cake? We totally forgot and everyone's already here." I was exhausted. I had just finished a 12-hour shift. I hadn't even had time to change. But I said yes, because saying no had never been an option for me. I showed up late, cake in hand, expecting at least some acknowledgement. A simple, "thank you," some kind of recognition. Instead, my mother barely even looked at me. "Why are you so late?" she asked, shaking her head in disappointment. "You almost ruined the whole night." I felt something snap inside me. I didn't eat. I didn't laugh along with their stories. I sat there, silent, as I watched them shower my brother with attention, praising him for the smallest things, hanging on to every word he said, acting as if he had single-handedly organized the entire night. I realized then that I could give and give and give, and it would never be enough, because they didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a function, a tool, a safety net, and I was done being used. So that night I made a decision. I was leaving, for good. I didn't make a big announcement. I didn't tell them my plans. I simply started living for myself. I applied for a job in another state. When I got it, I signed the lease on an apartment before even telling anyone I was moving. The day I left, I sent a single text in the family group chat. "I'm moving. Don't contact me unless it's an emergency." The silence lasted exactly 3 days. Then the calls started. At first, they were concerned, confused, acting as if I had simply lost my mind. "Why are you doing this?" my father asked. "We're family." "You're overreacting," my mother added. "It's not that serious." But when I refused to change my mind, the guilt tripping began. "How could you abandon us like this? After everything we've done for you? You think you're too good for us now?" And finally, when all else failed, anger. "You're selfish. You're ungrateful. You'll come crawling back." But they were wrong. Leaving wasn't just a physical act. It was an emotional unraveling, a slow and painful shedding of the role I had been forced to play for so long. At first, the silence was deafening. After years of being bombarded with constant demands, my phone was eerily still. No one was asking me to fix their problems. No one needed a ride, a favor, a loan, or a last-minute babysitter. It was like I had disappeared, and for a while, that emptiness gnawed at me. Had I really been nothing more than a utility to them? Had my entire existence in my family boiled down to how useful I was? But then slowly, something strange happened. The silence turned into peace. Mornings no longer began with frantic texts or missed calls. I didn't have to dread answering my phone, knowing that on the other end someone would be expecting something from me. My time belonged to me. My energy belonged to me. My life, finally, belonged to me. I threw myself into my new job, dedicating long hours to proving myself in a way that actually mattered. My boss recognized my work, and within months, I was given responsibilities I had never been trusted with before. In my family, no matter how much I did, I was invisible. But here, people saw me. Here, I wasn't just the person they turned to when things fell apart. I was someone who mattered. And outside of work, I allowed myself to explore parts of life I had never prioritized before. I made friends, not just acquaintances, not just coworkers I exchanged polite words with, but real friends who cared about me without expecting anything in return. I traveled on weekends, something I had never been able to do when my family kept me shackled to their needs. I went on dates, testing the waters of romance in a way that wasn't about seeking approval or proving my worth, but simply about experiencing something new. I felt like I was living, but of course my family wasn't done with me yet. The texts started slowly, trickling in like drops of water before an inevitable flood. My brother was the first to break the silence. "Hey, I know things have been weird, but we should talk. You can't just ignore us forever." I didn't respond. A week later, my mother tried. "I don't know what's gotten into you, but you're being incredibly unfair. We're family. Family doesn't turn their backs on each other." Still, I ignored it. Then the real desperation set in. "We need your help." That was the message that finally made me pause, not because I cared about whatever help they needed, but because it was proof that they hadn't changed. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They weren't apologizing, acknowledging how they had treated me, or even pretending to understand why I left. They just needed something. And when I didn't respond to that, the floodgates truly opened. "How could you be so selfish? After everything we've done for you, you think you're better than us now, don't you? You're a terrible daughter, a terrible sister. I hope you know that." Every single word reaffirmed my decision to leave, because this was who they truly were. Not family, not a loving support system, just a web of manipulation held together by guilt and obligation. They never valued me. They only valued what I could do for them. So I did something I had never done before. I blocked them, every single one of them. My mother, my father, my brother, every cousin, aunt, and uncle who had ever expected me to be the convenient backup plan, and blocking them should have been the end of it, a clean break. A severing of ties that had bound me to a life of obligation, of always being the one who was expected to drop everything at a moment's notice. And for a while it felt like it was. My phone remained blissfully silent, no longer vibrating with demands wrapped in guilt. My days were no longer spent anticipating when the next shoe would drop, when I'd have to pick up after someone else's mess. My life was mine now, and I was determined to keep it that way. But ghosts have a way of lingering. They didn't need my number to find me. The first sign that my past was clawing its way back into my present came unexpectedly, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I had just finished a meeting at work when I noticed the receptionist glancing at me with a nervous expression. As I approached, she hesitated before whispering, "There's a woman here asking for you. Says she's your mother." A slow, simmering dread settled into my stomach. I had made it clear that I wanted no contact. I had ignored every attempt, cut off every avenue they could use to reach me. And yet, here she was, sitting in the pristine waiting area of my office, dressed in the same kind of calculated sorrow I had seen so many times before. When I stepped forward, her eyes lit up, relief, or maybe victory flashing across her face, but I didn't let her get a word out before speaking. "You need to leave." My voice was steady, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions raging inside me. Her lips parted in an expression of wounded shock, as if I had struck her. "Is that really how you're going to treat your own mother?" I wanted to laugh at the audacity. As if she hadn't spent my entire life treating me as nothing more than a convenient fix to problems I never created. as if she hadn't erased my worth time and time again, only acknowledging me when she needed something. I folded my arms. "Why are you here?" She let out a heavy sigh, as if exhausted by my cruelty. "Your brother's in trouble." Of course, it was about him. It was always about him. I remained silent, waiting. She took my lack of response as an invitation to continue. "He lost his job a few months ago. He's been struggling to keep up with his mortgage, and now the bank is threatening to take his house." She lowered her voice, leaning in as if this was some tragic secret. "He's going to lose everything, and I just thought you wouldn't want to see your own brother homeless." The sheer entitlement in her words nearly took my breath away. She wasn't apologizing for anything. She wasn't acknowledging the years of neglect, of dismissal, of using me as their safety net while expecting nothing of him. She wasn't even asking for my help. She was expecting it, as if it were a given, as if I owed him my success simply because I had fought for it while he had squandered every opportunity handed to him. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "That's not my problem." She blinked as if confused. "What do you mean? He's your brother. And?" A flicker of genuine disbelief crossed her face. "You're really going to turn your back on family?" I tilted my head slightly, studying her. "Family," I echoed. Interesting choice of words. Where was family when I was struggling? Where was family when I was the one in need? She had no answer for that, because the truth was, I had never been family to them. I had been a convenience, a tool, a backup plan, but never family. I let the silence stretch between us, before finally delivering the final blow. "I don't owe you. I don't owe him. And I don't owe this family anything." Her face twisted, her lips parting as if she wanted to protest, to launch into another manipulative argument, but I was already turning away. She called my name, but I didn't stop. Cutting them off was supposed to be the end of it. The final chapter in a long, exhausting story where I had been cast as nothing more than the family's backup plan, the one they turned to when things fell apart, but never when things were good. Walking out of that office without looking back should have been my last interaction with them. And for a while, it was. Weeks passed, then months. My phone remained silent. My inbox stayed free of desperate emails or guilt-ridden messages. I had expected some sort of retaliation, a dramatic confrontation, a last-ditch attempt to guilt me into submission. But instead, it was nothing. Absolute silence. At first, it felt like victory. Then, it started to feel like a void. Not because I missed them. God, no. I had spent years yearning for their approval. And now that I was free from that cycle, I had no interest in running back. But there was something unsettling about how quickly they had let go. As if, after everything, I had never really mattered to them in the first place. As if the moment I stopped being useful, I ceased to exist in their world. It shouldn't have surprised me. But it still hurt. I buried myself in my work, in my life, in the peace that came with no longer being at their beck and call. And just when I had started to believe that maybe, just maybe, they had finally let me go for good, my past came knocking on my door, literally. It was a Sunday morning when it happened. I had been savoring a rare, lazy morning, curled up on the couch with a cup of coffee, when a knock echoed through my apartment. Not the impatient, frantic pounding of someone in distress, but a deliberate, measured knock. 3 taps, a pause, then another. I knew. Before I even got up, before I even looked through the peephole, I knew. I opened the door, and there stood my brother. He looked different. Not the cocky, careless golden child I had grown up with, but something smaller. Haggard. Worn down. His clothes, once designer and perfectly tailored, were rumpled. The cocky smirk he had always worn was absent, replaced by an expression I had never seen before. Humility. Or maybe just desperation masquerading as humility. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him, waiting. "Hey," he finally said, his voice raspier than I remembered. "Can I come in?" I debated slamming the door in his face. Instead, I stepped aside. He entered cautiously, like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. He shouldn't have been. He looked around my apartment, taking in the life I had built without them. No family photos, no remnants of my past. Just me. My space. My life. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I know I'm the last person you want to see right now, and I get it. I messed up. I treated you like shit for years. We all did." I said nothing. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Mom's sick." The words hit me like a dull thud, not the sharp pain of a fresh wound, but the heavy weight of something I had already braced myself for. I didn't flinch. "So?" He blinked, as if he hadn't expected that response. She doesn't have much time left," he said, his voice quieter now. "She asked for you." I let out a slow breath, leaning against the counter. "She asked for me?" I repeated. "The same woman who left everything to you? The same woman who ignored me, used me, and discarded me when I stopped being useful?" He looked down, shame flickering across his face. "She regrets that." I scoffed. "No, she regrets that I left. There's a difference." He didn't argue. She just wants to see you," he finally said. "One last time." A year ago, I would have dropped everything. I would have rushed to her side, desperate for whatever scraps of affection she was willing to give. But I wasn't that person anymore. Still, something inside me, the final remnant of the person I had been, told me I needed to go. Not for her, not for him, for me. So I went. When I stepped into the hospital room, the air was thick with the sterile scent of disinfectant and the quiet hum of machines. My mother lay in the hospital bed looking smaller than I had ever seen her. Frail, fragile, mortal. For a long time, she didn't speak. She just stared at me as if she couldn't believe I was real. Then, in a weak, trembling voice, she said, "You came." I nodded but said nothing. She exhaled shakily. "I know. I wasn't a good mother to you." I remained silent. Her eyes welled with tears. "I was wrong. About everything. About you." I swallowed the lump in my throat, my hands curling into fists at my sides. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you always choose him over me?" Her lips trembled. "Because I was afraid." That I hadn't expected. She coughed, struggling to breathe as she spoke. "Your father, he always said we had to protect him, that he was fragile, that he needed more love. And I believed him. I let him convince me that you were stronger, that you didn't need us the way he did, that you would be fine on your own." I clenched my jaw. "And you never stopped to think that maybe I needed you too?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I was wrong," she whispered again. "I see that now, and I am so sorry." I stared at her, waiting for the anger, for the resentment, for the need to scream at her, to finally let her feel even a fraction of what I had carried my whole life. But all I felt was nothing. Just exhaustion. I let out a slow breath. "I forgive you," I said. Her eyes widened, her lips parting in a small, broken gasp. Not because I wanted to absolve her. Not because I wanted some grand, sentimental moment. But because I refused to let her mistakes define me anymore. She exhaled, relief washing over her. "I love you," she whispered. I didn't say it back. Instead, I reached forward, gently placing my hand over hers, not as a daughter desperate for approval, but as a person ready to let go. She closed her eyes, a soft smile on her lips, and my mother passed away that night. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no grand moment of closure, just a quiet, inevitable ending to a chapter I had already moved past. At the funeral, my brother clung to me, as if trying to salvage whatever was left of our relationship. I didn't push him away, but I didn't hold on either, because I was done being their backup plan. I had a life now, a real life, one built on my own terms, and I refused to let them pull me back into the role they had always expected me to play.